Hi guys, welcome back. It's Mrs. Peterson, that lady who teaches art, and today we are going to take our layered landscape that we sketched out with pencil last time, and we are going to create the shades and tints on our layered landscape with watercolor paint. So we need a lot of supplies for watercolor paint. The first thing is you need water, right? I like to have a cup of clean water. See how they both start with C, cup, clean. And then I have my dish for my dirty water. That's the water I'm using. I like to have a lid like this to mix colors in. And then you'll need your paint palette. Remember, this is monochromatic, so you're going to be using black and then one other color to create this. And I will caution against yellow. Sometimes the yellow, it's hard to get it looking like an actual layered landscape because the other two layers are pretty light. So up to you. And then I have a fine tip brush and a thicker brush. You can choose what kind of brush you would like today. I have lots of little details, so I wanted a fine tip brush. And then I like to use a wipe as my cleanup if I need, or eraser if I need. And then in the middle of your table, I will have a bucket that I call the trash can for the dirty water. So the first thing you need to do is decide what color you are going to use for your monochromatic painting. So we're going to choose one color. We're going to leave the top area white. So down to this first line that I made is going to be white up here. And then in between, I'm going to color a light shade of my color. So I'm going to take water a little bit and I'm going to pour it into my dish. I don't need very much. And then I'm going to get a little bit of my color. I think I'm going to do orange. So after my brush is wet, I can get my orange out of here and I can make my orange right in my dish, my dirty dish. If it's too dark, you can add more water because you want it to be light. We're going to use the white of the paper to make the tint. And mine's maybe not even quite orange enough yet. So I'm going to paint very carefully right up to that line with my orange. And dip back when you run out of the paint on your brush. And then I can just fill in this area. And for me, I'm right-handed. I may twist my paper this way and go right down to that line I created. In watercolor painting, it is totally acceptable to see the pencil line showing through. I just want to make sure that this is all a light shade of orange. I feel like I'm getting like a different, okay. So if it gets too dark like that, couple of options. You could take your wipe and just kind of blot that up. Or you can just get your dish, a little more water in it, and then blend it out with a little more water. Painting carefully to my line. Don't want this to be too dark. So if I get too much value, I'm going to go back and add. The other thing that can happen if you have too much water and too much rubbing, the kids last year called it fuzzies. The paper gets kind of fuzzy. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to overwork the paper is what I tend to call it. So you want to get your light orange or light whatever color you choose on and all the way around those, fill in those details. And then when you feel like you're done with that layer, make sure that you are checking that it's all the same value everywhere. For me, I feel like I have some orange that's a little bit darker right in the middle, so I'm going to work that up and down. But I don't want to overwork my paper. When I feel like I have that orange on, then I'm going to go to my darker orange. And so I'm using the same color. Sometimes I dump out all of my water, but I would maybe just dump out like half of my water because I'm using the exact same color. If I was using a different color, this was like a sunset and I was switching to like blue for the bottom, then I would, okay, mine's way too watery right now. So maybe I'm just going to dip out of this. Maybe I would need to clean my water and my brushes, but I'm using the same color, just darker. And can paint right along that line again. And then just kind of fill in. Okay, and then the harder line to paint in is going to be definitely this more detailed one, right? And you can leave just a little bit of white space in between the two colors so they don't run into each other. Maybe I'll show you an example of a bad thing to do in just a second. But you want to try to be really careful not to let it run into each other, because then it will run and make kind of like a blob up into your lighter color. If it's got too much liquid on it and it touches that other color. Just get those little details. Oh, and if you go out of the line like that, just take your white, try to clean it back up. And when you feel like you're done with that darker shade, just make sure that it's all kind of evenly spread with that darker shade. This building looks a little light, and so does this side of this one. Just try to get it more even without overworking your paper. Okay. When you're done with that shade, you could clean your brush by just scrubbing it out in the bottom here. And you could use the same brush if you want to. You may need to dump your water in the trash can bucket, get some more clean water, do a little more scrubbing. You may have to do that 2 or 3 times to get your brush back to clean. For me, I don't have very detailed line down here, so I think I'm just going to use a new brush that's already clean, and then I'll just clean both brushes at the end of class. Okay, so I'm going to take my brush, get it wet, get the black. I always like to start at the line. This is looking very gray. I have too much water and not enough paint. In the black, you kind of have to go slower. That's going to happen. It's okay if a little bit of it gets off onto the table, because we will clean up the tables at the end. Don't purposely paint on my tables, but some is going to get off the edge. That's just fine. It is an art room after all. Okay. And when you feel like you have it all covered, go back and make sure that there's not like a darker spot. Like right here, I feel like there's a darker streak across here, so that it's all one shade. Try not to let there be too big of paper peekers right there. That's what the second graders call it. And just get that smoothed out. When you are done with that, it's going to dry, and next class we will sign it. So just remember, at the top layer, that's going to stay white. You're going to make a light shade using lots of water and a little bit of color. And then you're going to use the same color, because it's monochromatic, on your darker shade, less water, more paint. And then your last layer is going to be black. At the end of class, you're going to take all of your water. You can scrub your brush like this, dump that dirty water in the bucket in the middle of your table, scrub your brush until it's pretty clean. And then all of your water at the end of class is going to get thrown or dumped into the bucket. You're going to take any brushes that you used. I used 2. You're going to put a pump of soap in your hand, scrub them into your hand with that soap, and then run them under the water. There should be no paint coming out of these when you're done. You're going to take your wipe and clean up your area. And your painting needs to dry flat. So I'll show you the area in the classroom where we're going to lay that. If you used this to mix any colors, you're going to take your wipe and just clean that out. And then we just put everything back. All right, you guys, I can't wait to see what you create.